Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Wednesday, the 5th of June. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Chris Jack. How's it going, Chris?
All good, Derek. We were just saying before we came on air there, not too much in the way of Rangers transfer rumours or Rangers news to get us through. So if it's a quiet morning, sometimes results in a busy old afternoon. So I'm gearing up for what another day will bring.
Yep. Lewis sums it up perfectly. He says, this is murder in it, no football for ages. Yes, it is, Lewis. It absolutely is. But there's still stuff to talk about when it comes to Rangers. Just a bit of admin that I sort of forgot to mention before now. On Friday, was it Friday? I think Friday we were on, Chris, just at the tail end of the video. I just missed it. But Bluebells Are Blue. Good subscriber and viewer to the channel. Very kindly donated 5 Rangers Review memberships. So thank you very much for your generosity, buddy. It is much appreciated. So those of you that have picked up one of those memberships, then hopefully you're enjoying the content. A couple of videos that released yesterday, transfer videos. One on Relibahili Mofo King. I spoke to the renowned football scout Jessica Kulig about him, give us a great insight into what we can expect should he pitch up at Rangers. And then late last night, I spoke to a guy, an expert on Uruguayan football. Alvaro gave us a bit of insight into Damian Garcia, who has also been linked with a move to Rangers. So I'd urge you to go and check them out. They are available now on the Rangers Review Extra channel. And on Friday as well, I forgot to mention, I seen that we were 22nd apparently in the fan channels in the UK, which is a quite incredible feat based on viewer numbers this calendar year, which is a huge thanks to you guys for tuning in, for getting us up to that lofty position. Some big hitters in there, Chris, but we're in amongst it all.
Just shows the excellent job that we are doing. It's nothing to do with viewers at all. It's all down to us. But no, we have to thank everyone that tunes in every morning, everyone that's signed up to the channel, everyone that participates in the Q&A shows and sends in their comments. We were also at Ibrox for the Walter Smith statue unveiling before the Scottish Cup final, and the number of people that came up to you looking for pictures and just to shake your hand because they recognised you from the channel. It was almost like a former player had graced us with their presence. So, over the course of the season, since I also made the move over, and also started doing these videos a bit more regularly, it is nice to see people coming up to you at games or out and about, saying that they enjoy the work that we do, and that's also why we do it. Now we need people to tune in. We need people to subscribe to the channel, to subscribe to the website, and the more that people do that, the more work we can do, the bigger the channel becomes, the more scope we have to do excellent pieces on the website. So I'm really grateful for everyone that's joined in, and for the I think it says a lot about us to an extent, but certainly the loyalty of the Rangers Review readers and listeners and viewers that we managed to get in that list. As you say, there's some big fan podcasts in there. There's some big hitters in there. The English channels also have huge audiences, but it was great to see the Rangers Review name in amongst those big hitters, as you say.
Yep, a small team here, but great to see being acknowledged. But again, it's down to you guys for tuning in and interacting with the show. A big welcome to you. Can you do that? Who's become a Rangers Review Extra member? So hopefully you enjoy the content, buddy. Right, let's get cracking with some of the news. Not a lot to get stuck into, but you had a great piece on the website yesterday, Chris, on the goalkeeping situation. Robbie McCrorie will be moving on this summer. Rangers looking for around £500,000 for his services. He's entering the final year of his contract. I can't blame him wanting to move on, incidentally. Should have moved on before now. Is that reasonable for Rangers to ask that, do you reckon?
I think a lot of it will come down to the add-ons that are attached on that deal as well. It's almost hard to put a price on Robbie, because a club is buying potential. They're buying someone who we all think is a really good goalkeeper, can become an even better goalkeeper, could could even become Scotland number one in years to come. And if you go and buy him that summer, that's what you are investing in. You're investing in the fact that he will or should and can get better. So I think there will be a hefty sell-on clause and some hefty add-ons on that fee as well. I think around about 500,000. That was the figure that was told a couple of days ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Rangers do get. As you mentioned, he's in the final year of his contract now. The manager has addressed the situation over the last couple of weeks. He's unhappy, to put it lightly. The fact that so many players were allowed to enter that final stage of a deal is really in a case of either use Robbie or you lose him, and everything points to Rangers losing him. He submitted a transfer request in January, keen to get out, to go and play some games, to go on loan, to try and enhance his club aspirations, but also get himself a place in that Scotland squad. I think if he had been playing regularly in the second half of the campaign, he would be with the Scotland group right now rather than on holiday and looking ahead to next season. So that request was rejected by Rangers at that stage. They wanted him to remain at the club, obviously, because they needed a solid backup to Jack Butland in case the worst happened. Thankfully, it didn't. But that transfer request, it remains on the table. It won't be removed. Rangers in the last couple of weeks have made attempts to try and get Robbie to sign an extended contract. They would potentially boost his wages again. And part of that could have been he goes out on loan this season and then we see where we are this time next year. But I think he's heard these conversations before. He's been in this situation over the last couple of seasons. He thought he was getting a good crack at it after Seville in the Scottish Cup final. And it looked like Alan McGregor would be moving on. That also didn't happen. McGregor signs on. Robbie finds himself as number 3 again. After that, he's then competing with John McLaughlin. For me, he should have got more of a chance during that time. Butland comes in last summer, and as much as I think Robbie's a cracking goalkeeper, and I'd love to see him succeed at Rangers, you can't really argue with what Jack Butland achieved over the course of the campaign. So yes, there is this doubt over whether Butland will be the Rangers goalkeeper or not next season. But I think the time has come for Robbie. I think he just has to move on. He can't take another chance with another season at his age. He has to go and play football somewhere to show what he can do at club level, and I'm confident that will then lead to international recognition, and he can go and become the next Scotland goalkeeper.
Yeah, I'll be looking at his brother, of course, who was making his Scotland debut, wasn't it, against Gibraltar during the week, and no doubt he'll be itching for international recognition. He should have played a lot more games than he has done at this stage of his career. I wish him well wherever he goes. I know that he has been linked with Aberdeen. Fully expect a host of other clubs to be interesting in taking him from Rangers. I think I said yesterday, I think he could be the number 1 for every club in Scotland, barring the club across the city. So, I don't think he'll be short of offers. Thomas McCrimmon gets in touch, says McCrorie over Kelly all day, every day, he says. That's fair enough, but McCrorie does want to leave. And Liam Kelly, I think, will be more than an able deputy coming in. Chris, do you expect him to get much games? Much will depend on Jack Butland if he does leave. I think Rangers will be bringing in a replacement anyway. But Liam Kelly, I know that in the past, number 2s have gotten the cup games. I fully expected Robin McCrorie to get more cup games last season. But Liam Kelly coming in, safe pair of hands. Do you expect him to play more than Robbie, perhaps?
You'd have to look at it on the basis of this season and say the manager perhaps doesn't believe in this cup keeper idea, because if he did, Robbie would have had a handful of games under his belt this season. He also played in the Dumbarton game in January. After that, didn't get a look in terms of any other knockout games. Didn't play in any of the League Cup games. So obviously Rangers went on and won in December. So maybe the manager doesn't buy into that theory, or Michael Beale didn't buy into that theory at the start of the season either. And I think it's a shame for Robbie, because those type of games, he is more than capable of going in and doing a very good job for Rangers. I've seen him playing against Alashkert and Celtic a few seasons ago, came in and did really well in those ones. He was then given a chance over that five games I think he played at the end of that campaign. Yeah. Again, didn't look at a place at all. This season, it's just not going to plan. He was never going to be able to replace Jack Butland unless something happened to Butland. So I think it is time for him to move on. Slightly surprised that Liam Kelly, at his age, would think he's got a better chance of getting ahead of Jack Butland. I don't see that being the case. Kelly is basically taking McCrorie's place. So Robbie moves on, goes either to another Premiership club or goes down south and plays games and goes and shows what he does. Slightly surprised that Kelly, at his age, he doesn't think, well, I've still got maybe another couple of years on me as a number one, and then I'll take that berth as a number two. But there's obviously the lure of playing for Rangers, going for leagues, going for cups, European games, and you never know what's going to happen to the first choice keeper. You could pick up an injury, you could pick up a suspension. There's every chance, unfortunately, that Jack Butland moves on. So there's clearly positives there for Liam Kelly, but I don't think people will be looking at him as a potential number one. Clearly coming in as a backup option. If Jack Butland does move on, Rangers have to invest in that area of the pitch. That piece that I had on the website yesterday make the point that every transfer window you want to come out of it in a stronger, better position than you went into it. In the goalkeeping sense, that's going to be very, very difficult for Rangers, because I don't think they'll get a backup who's as good as Robbie McCrorie. I don't think Liam Kelly is. And you then look at Jack Butland. Will Rangers be able to attract a better goalkeeper than Jack Butland over the next few weeks if they require? I just don't see it. That's going to be a really, really tall order to try and get someone that's better than Butland has been this season. So that's a concern. But we have to see, obviously, what fees on the table, what Rangers are able to do business-wise for Butland, and you'll then have to go and reinvest some of that money in a proper number one.
Yeah, there's another goalkeeper that people rarely mention as well, just behind McCrorie, and that is Kieran Wright. Now, he's 25 years of age, just turned 25 in April there. Was out on an emergency loan at Livingston at the tail end of last season. He's another one, hasn't really had a look in at Rangers, had numerous loans at lower league clubs in Scotland. He signed a contract extension recently. He's got until the summer of 2025. He signed that in the summer of 2023. He has to be looking to move on as well, Chris, surely?
You would think so. On that piece that I put out yesterday, a number of comments on, and once I tweeted it and I went on social media, a number of comments, people saying, I can't believe Robbie McCrorie is 26. There's no way that he's 26. I can't believe that Kieran is 25.
No.
Just seems that he's been around, been spoken about and been around for a long, long time. I think his chances of playing first-team football at Rangers are very, very slim. He may see it as you've got a number one that's either Butland or another. You've got a number two that's Liam Kelly, and he then takes that number three spot. Also, John McLaughlin moved on. Also, Robbie will move on. So there is, in theory, there is a slot there for a third-choice goalkeeper. It's whether at his age he's happy being third choice. You would think he would go on and play games somewhere, and Rangers would then look to the academy and say, well, there'll be another one. I think Mason Munn is probably the next in line for that one, as Billy says there. I think he's probably next in line to take that number three spot if Kieran does move on. But when you get to that age, it really is, for all the positives of being at Rangers and the training, and as I say, being around the squad that's going for leagues and going for titles, going for European football. At some point, the footballer in you must take over, and you just want to go and play games somewhere. So I wouldn't be surprised if he moves on as well. So there could be quite a lot of movement in that goalkeeping area.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if Kieran Wright's staying, I would like to see him put out on loan. But if he's happy being third choice, which looks likely, then fair enough. But yeah, he's at an age where he has to be playing football matches. Right, let's get to some of the more points that are coming in here. If you want to get your questions fired in, folks, please do so. We'll answer them as many as we possibly can. This point here from Blazing Blue says, what's your video with Alvaro Derek? Damian Garcia sounds like a brilliant player. Need to watch some of his YouTubes. Yeah, it came out a glowing recommendation. The word from Uruguay last night was he was in a bit of a dispute with his club, Peñarol, over there in Uruguay. He wanted more money. Peñarol looking to keep him until the end of the calendar year. They're about to take part in he's got them into the Copa Libertadores, so they're looking to keep some of their best players before selling him on. By all accounts, him agreeing an increase in his wages doesn't necessarily mean that he will still be at the club for the foreseeable future. So we shouldn't read too much into that. But it certainly seems to come with a decent pedigree. Again, only 20 years of age, Chris, was part of the Uruguay squad that recently won the Under-20 World Cup. And it's clear that Rangers are looking to unearth some South American gems before they're picked up by some of the bigger clubs in Europe.
I think it makes football sense. It makes financial sense if you can get these players at the right time, and you can develop them. If you can win with them, which is the most important thing for Rangers, and you can then sell them on. It's on paper. It sounds like a very shrewd business model. Now, of course, you have to get the right players. You have to have players that do have the right technical ability. You need to have the right mentality to make that move from South America or Central America and then come over to Rangers and deal with the unique world that is Scottish football. It'll be interesting to see how Hefty makes that move, having almost had a stopover in Cyprus, perhaps not as big a move for him. The same with Oscar Cortés, having had a wee bit of time in France and then having his loan at Rangers. That transition shouldn't be that bigger move for him, hopefully. If you're taking someone straight out of Colombia or out of Uruguay, it's perhaps a bigger move. We will have to be more patient with these players if they do end up at Ibrox. But I think it's encouraging that Rangers are looking in different markets. They're looking at different ways of building a squad because they just have to. Because what has been done in previous seasons, it's not worked. If you keep doing the same things over and over again, you're going to end up with the same outcomes at the end of it. And that doesn't bode well in terms of silverware or a manager's longevity. So I think it's encouraging that Rangers are looking in different markets. I wrote a piece not long after Niels Coppin was appointed, going through why he was the man that Rangers put their faith in, what impressed them, and the type of moves that we could expect to see. And moving into different markets was something that I mentioned in that piece. It's not just a case of the look to the English Championship or the look to the bigger leagues in Europe and try and pick up guys that are perhaps on the fringes. It's about going to maybe different European leagues. I say going to the Americas, certainly going out to Asia. We've seen Celtic have a big success in there. So pleased to see the club widening the net a wee bit and expanding their horizons. And it's not just a case of, as we saw last summer, a manager that knows a player because he worked with him when he was 18 or he played against him when he was 7. There's a lot more scope in the transfer dealings this summer, it seems, by some of the names that have been linked. Ultimately, we have to get these guys in. We have to see what they can do and how good they are. And come the end of the window, we can then all sit and judge. Well, it's been good, it's been bad, it's been indifferent. But I say until we get to that stage, I think the fans can just be encouraged that Rangers clearly on the case. There will be a big overhaul of the squad this summer. Still players to leave, still players to be moved on as well. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks as the Euros ramp up. That'll give everyone their football fix, but there'll certainly be plenty of Rangers business both before, during, and after the championships as well.
Yeah, before we get to the next point, just noticed this. Colin Cooper raises this point, says, Derek, shout out to Seafood and Eat It as Mum Margaret passed away. A lovely woman. Sorry to hear that, buddy. Condolences from myself and Chris and everyone at the Rangers Review. Moving on to, that was just on the issue of South America, Chris, Steve-O with a point says, have there been many South Americans who have made an impact in Scottish football? I'm still traumatised by Petro's recruitment. Well, one springs to mind at El Buffalo. Rangers have had a good few South Americans that have done well for the club. Claudio Caniggia is another that springs to mind. Gabriel Amato, loved him during his time at Rangers. Is there any other? Sebastian Rosenthal suffered that horrendous knee injury, unfortunately. We know about the Pedro signings. Peña and Herrera didn't really set the heather alight. But I remember Dundee at the turn of the century bringing in an influx of guys from South America. Fabian Caballero was one. Juan Sara was a good player. They had a host of others as well. So I wouldn't read too much into that. For every Jose Cifuentes and Carlos Peña, there's a Claudio Caniggia and Alfredo Morelos, Chris.
if we can unearth more Morelos and more Creedges, then I think we're certainly onto something. But as I said earlier on, that's the key part of this strategy. The players have to be the right ones. So I wouldn't be put off going into those markets just because Pedro couldn't pick a player. He couldn't pick a team either. There was a lot of things that Pedro couldn't do. So I wouldn't be put off going back into those markets just because there has been failures, if you like. So I think I know the fans speak a lot about we need a Scottish core. We need people that know the club, that are Rangers men. I think we kind of discussed that over the last couple of weeks. Ultimately, you need the players that have the right technical ability, that have the right mentality, and have the right physical attributes to be robust enough to get through the number of games. Whether they come from Govan or whether they come from Colombia doesn't really make a massive difference to me. You just want the right players in the squad that can do their bit individually, but that the manager can then mould into a team and a group to go on and be successful for Rangers. So I say I'm pleased that the club are looking at different markets. I think there will be some Scottish players, I feel like, coming in as well. I'll be surprised if they don't try and pick up some of the best of what's round about. But ultimately, we're sitting here early June. There's a long time to go in this window yet, and it'll be a long time before we can make a proper judgment on Niels Coppin and his recruitment blueprint and the manager and what he's signed off and what the club have been able to do.
Talking about Scottish players, I noticed one experienced Scottish player was released from his contract out at Southampton, and that is Stuart Armstrong, formerly of Celtic, of course. Would you be opposed to seeing someone of that ilk pitching up at Ibrox? I've got to say, Chris, I'm a fan of him. He thinks 32 years of age now. Wouldn't mind him, players like that, just filling the squad.
It would have been an interesting first press conference if Stuart ended up at Murray Park with a scarf over his head. I would be surprised if Rangers go and sign former Celtic players. He's a player that I like. I think he's still got a lot to offer. He's obviously got a place to play in the Scotland squad in the European Championship. But I would be surprised if I see if Rangers are in the market for former Celtic players. But someone of that ilk, of that profile, yes. I said just not someone that's previously played in the city.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying that I fill the team full of guys like that, but I think, Kenny McLean's another one that springs to mind. It seems to be linked every transfer window as well. Comments coming in. Kenneth's not a fan of Stuart Armstrong, and Colin Cooper nailing his opinion to his chest there with his comments there. So not happy about that. But there you go. Let's move on. Some interesting points coming in. This one, you may have seen, it won't go away. The Saudi links with Goldson and Tavernier. Stuart with a point here is seen rumours doing around £7 million offered for Tav and Goldson. Don't know how true. Well, there is interest in the pair of them over there in Saudi. I do wonder with James Bisgrove heading out there, whether we may see Al Quadzia making a move for both or one of the players as well. But certainly want to keep an eye on. We've said it before, Chris. You touched on it. It's a big call for the manager this summer, whether to stick with Tav and Goldson or whether he is looking to move them on and pretty much start afresh. But if Rangers are offered £7 million for the pair of them, are you taking it?
Yes, but again, I think it's hard to put a value on them. You're looking at guys who are, again, with all respect to them, in the latter stages of their careers. How do you actually put a proper price on their head? You're not really buying potential at that age. But I think if that was the kind of money that was on the table, I don't think you get a lot of fans saying no. It has to be 9. It has to be 10. I think if you got 7 for two guys, I think that would be a decent fee. It's not something that I've seen those rumours online this morning, but it's not something that I've had an update on. I know that there is interest from Saudi, someone that I know out there. Spoke briefly with him the week before last, I think it was, about that. And it's something. It's not just chatter in Glasgow; it's chatter out there as well. So interested to see how that one develops and whether Rangers are willing to make what would be a really big call if you're going to sell your captain and your vice captain, guys who have played combined hundreds of games for Rangers, big players still within that squad, huge figures within the club and in that dressing room. If you're going to sell players of that standing, you have to have adequate replacements lined up. I know we've spoken a lot about Goldson in particular and his form leading up to him going out the side and obviously picking up the injury that ruled him out for the rest of the season. Spoke a lot about Tav's form over the closing weeks of the campaign as well. I know there's a groundswell of opinion amongst a lot of fans that it's time for them to move on. I do understand that, but it still would be a big call from Niels Coppin and Philippe Clement. You're really backing yourself. I think even more so in terms of Tav. As you're going to replace Goldson, you're just looking for a solid, steady centre half, much like he was when he first came in from Brighton. I think if you're taking Tav out the side, that really changes the dynamic of the team. Do you accept that your next right back will not score the number of goals that Tav does? Do you accept that your next right back won't get into the attacking positions? And it does potentially. That's going to be a big ask. That's going to be a bigger change. So I think Tav is harder to replace than Conor Goldson. But I do understand this groundswell of opinion amongst a lot of the fans that it's time for both of them to move on.
Yep. Watch this space with regards to that, folks. That's as much as we can say with that. Jock with the point says, watch your video, Derek. The guy just on Mofo King. This is the guy did say the young player would take a season to bed in, so it's another project. We have time for projects. Yep. He did say you would have to be patient with him. He is just a young lad, really. Bohili Mofo King. This is his first full season in professional football. Rangers have been linked with him. Seems like an exciting player. But again, he's only 19 years of age. So again, it's just a young guy that Rangers have been linked with. They are looking to bring down the overall age of the squad. That is clear. Blazing Blue 72, but a good point. If we need to have 8 locally trained players, do you think we'll be having a bench full of youth or bring more in, Derek? Sort of what we touched on there, Chris. I think Rangers will be looking to bring in some Scottish boys. Ryan Jack has departed the club, and I think there should be a sort of nucleus. We touched on it already of not just Scottish players, but good, hungry Scottish boys as well, and not just flinging on guys just for the sake of it, just to make up the numbers.
Mm-hmm. I think it'll be really telling, I think, next season how many of the current academy players that the manager really puts his faith in. We've also seen it a lot in terms of Ross McCausland this year. We've had other ones come in, like Cole McKinnon, he managed a couple of games. But overall, there's not this huge conveyor belt of talent in place. There doesn't seem to be a number of guys chapping on the door. So I think by the time we get to pre-season, be really interesting and quite telling, I think, to see how many of the current B team, 20s team, perhaps even lower down than that the manager takes on that pre-season trip.
Yep.
If they're going to be involved, you would think if they're going to be involved at a first team level, they would have to be on that trip because the pre-season is going to be so important in terms of building a squad and giving the manager time to work on the training ground. So if you are on the fringes of that first team and you're not on the plane that heads out in pre-season, I think that probably tells you quite a lot. It is something, in a wider sense, Rangers need to get better at. We all love to see younger players coming through the academy and then being given a chance and making a claim, staking a claim, and doing well for the team. So it is something that has to improve. It's not been disastrous over the last few years. Obviously, Nathan Patterson is the standout in that regard. But it is something that Rangers, for football reasons and financial reasons, they do need to see more of a return from the academy. And obviously at academy level, post Zep Jacobs, he's obviously moved on. That position needs filled over the next few weeks and months as well. So another change at academy level, which then also feeds a lot into the first team. So it's obvious, it's clear, and it's only natural that there is so much emphasis on the first team. But Rangers really need to have eyes and ears on the academy level and to ensure that there is more of a pathway and more of a progression for the best kids, not at 21, 22, but at 17, 18, 19, so they can really make an impact. And we can then obviously, hopefully, if they're successful, sell them on, just like Nathan Patterson was, and then the whole cycle then continues and it starts all over again.
Yep. Stephen with the point says, where is pre-season? Get an inclination where the club are going. They've been pretty quiet on it, but they'll be going somewhere, I'd imagine, somewhere exotic.
They are going to Holland, if that's exotic enough for you. We are still waiting to get final dates.
Yeah.
I know the squad are back at Auchenhowie. Towards the end of this month, they'll have a week or so. They are going through the usual tests and measurements and all the rest of it, and they're then heading out to Holland. But also the Man United game on the 20th. That's the only one that has been confirmed so far. There's been talk of another couple of games that some have been muted, but we are hoping to get a bit more meat on the bones in terms of that particular schedule. Because it'd be nice to know, one, where I'm heading, two, if I need the passport, and three, what weeks I can take off, so I'm not going to miss anything important.
Exactly. A few comments coming in saying, get the boys down to Gull and Sands. Yeah, I agree. That should be a ritual every pre-season. As long as there's an English away day in there in terms of the pre-season preparation, then I will be a fan of that. But yes, Chris says we've got the Man United friendly at Murrayfield. That is the only confirmed one so far. So as soon as we hear, then you guys will be hearing about it as well. So keep your eyes peeled on our social media accounts and also on the website as well. Right, folks, that'll do us there. Thank you to each and every one of you, as always, for interacting with the show. Big thanks to Chris as well. Just a reminder, if you want to watch those two videos on Damien Garcia and Rela Bahili Mofo King, they are now available on the YouTube channel, so do go and check them out. Later on this afternoon, I think I'm doing a video with Joshua on Oscar Cortez, fresh from signing his new deal at Rangers, so one to keep an eye out for. Right, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, folks, and we'll speak to you again later on. Bye for now.